When my children did not come on Mother's Day, I told myself not to be surprised. Still, I set the table. I do not know why I did that. Maybe because hope becomes a habit when you are a mother. Maybe because I had done it for so many years that my hands moved on their own. I woke up before sunrise that morning. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavy, like it is watching you. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, listening to the clock on the wall. Each second sounded louder than the one before. I remember thinking how strange it was that time could feel so slow and so fast at the same time. I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was thinner now. My eyes looked tired, even after a full night of sleep. Happy Mother's Day, I whispered to myself. I smiled. It felt weak, but I smiled anyway. Set up who I was to them. I raised 2 children, a son and a daughter. They were my whole world for many years. Their father passed away when they were still young. From that day on, I became everything at once. Mother, father, provider, comfort. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, sometimes with pain in my back and worry in my chest. But I never complained to them. I wanted their childhood to feel safe, even if my life did not. I remember packing lunches late at night. I remember sitting by their beds when they were sick. I remember skipping meals so they could eat better. I thought that was what love was. Giving quietly, giving without asking. As they grew older, life changed. They moved out. They built families of their own. And slowly, without me noticing, I stopped being their mother and became their solution. Mother's Day morning. That morning, I cooked their favorite food. Nothing fancy, just warm, familiar dishes. I placed the plates on the table. 3 chairs. 1 for me, 2 for them. I bought flowers from a small shop near my house. They were not expensive, but they made the room feel alive. I checked my phone many times. No messages. The night before, they had both said they would come. Of course, Mom, my son said. We'll be there, my daughter said. So I believed them. By late morning, the food was ready. The house smelled like home used to smell. I sat down and waited. Waiting. Waiting is a strange thing. At first, it feels hopeful. Then it feels uncomfortable. Then it starts to hurt. I told myself they might be late. Traffic. Work. Children. I waited some more. The food grew cold. The flowers leaned to one side. The clock kept moving. By afternoon, I understood. They were not coming. I did not cry loudly. I did not scream or throw anything. I just sat there, very still, feeling something inside me grow quiet. That was when I realized something painful. They did not forget Mother's Day. They chose something else. Nightfall. I cleaned the table alone. I wrapped the food and put it away. Some of it, I threw out. When the sun went down, the house felt even bigger. Too big for one person. I sat on the couch with the lights off. I did not turn on the television. I did not want noise. I wanted to understand what I was feeling. At almost 10 o'clock, I heard a car outside. I knew that sound. My heart did not race. It did not jump. It just sank. The door opens. They walked in laughing. Hey, Mom, my son said. That was all. No apology. No flowers. No Mother's Day wishes. They sat down like it was any other night. Then, after a few minutes, the reason became clear. They needed help. Money. And in that moment, something inside me changed forever. That night, I smiled instead of crying. Not because I was strong, but because I was tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of hoping. Tired of being remembered only when I was needed. And that was the night I made a quiet decision. One that would change everything, the small signs I ignored. After that night, the house felt different. It was still the same place. The same walls. The same furniture. But something invisible had shifted. Like a picture frame hanging just a little crooked. Not enough to notice right away. But enough to feel wrong every time you looked at it. The next morning, I woke up early again. Not because I wanted to. Because my mind would not rest. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table. The chair across from me stayed empty. I thought about the way they came in laughing the night before. How easy it was for them. How heavy it felt for me. And I asked myself a quiet question. When did this begin? Looking back, it did not happen all at once. That much I know now. At first, it was small things. Shorter phone calls. Fewer visits. Busy voices on the other end of the line. I'll call you back, Mom. We're just so busy right now. I understood. Or at least, I told myself I did. Life moves fast when you are young. That is what I believed. When they stopped asking how I was, I filled the silence myself. I'm fine, I would say quickly. Don't worry about me. And they didn't. The calls that changed. Over time, I noticed a pattern. When they called just to talk, it felt rare, almost special. But when they needed something, the phone rang quickly. Mom, can you help? Mom, I'm in a bit of trouble. Mom, I just need a little money. I never said no. I told myself this was still love. That helping was part of being a mother. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice kept whispering, why do they only remember you when they need something? I ignored that voice. I had learned long ago how to do that. Visits that felt empty. When they did come over, it felt different than it used to. They stayed on their phones. They talked about their own lives. They did not ask about my days. They did not notice when I was tired. I cooked. I served. I cleaned. Just like before. But the warmth was gone. Sometimes, when they left, the house felt quieter than it had before they arrived. That was when I started feeling lonely. Even when I was not alone. Making excuses for them. I defended them. To myself. To others. They mean well, I would say. They are just busy. I said it so often that I almost believed it. But deep down, I knew something was missing. Not gifts. Not money. Care. Real care. The kind that asks, are you okay? And waits for the answer. The empty chair. One afternoon, weeks before Mother's Day, I sat at the table and noticed the empty chairs again. I imagined their laughter. Their voices. And for the first time, I wondered if I had taught them this. I had always been available. Always strong. Always giving. Maybe I had made it too easy to forget. That I was human too. That thought stayed with me. It did not hurt loudly. It hurt slowly. Quiet acceptance. By the time Mother's Day arrived, part of me already knew how it would end. And yet, I still set the table. That is the hardest part to explain. Mothers keep hoping. Even when hope has failed them before. Not because they are foolish. But because they love deeply. Too deeply. End of part 2. Gentle pause. Looking back now, I see the signs clearly. They were always there. I just chose love over truth. And sometimes, that choice costs more than we expect. When love became an expectation, there was a time when helping my children felt natural. It felt like breathing. If they needed something, I gave it. If they were struggling, I stepped in. I did not keep count. I did not expect anything in return. I believed that love, real love, did not ask for balance. But slowly, something changed. And I did not notice it right away. Always available. I was always there. If they called late at night, I answered. If they needed money urgently, I found a way. If they asked for help at the last minute, I adjusted my plans. I told myself this was what good mothers do. Even when my body felt tired. Even when my savings grew smaller. Even when no one asked how I was managing. I said yes before they finished their sentences. And over time, they stopped asking politely. The tone shift. I remember the first time I noticed the change in their voices. Not rude. Not cruel. Just certain. Mom, I need you to send some money today. Mom, can you cover this for me? No pause. No hesitation. Like it was already decided. At first, it did not bother me. I told myself I was imagining things. But slowly, I realized something uncomfortable. They were no longer asking. They were expecting. The weight of giving. Every time I helped them, I felt proud and tired at the same time. Proud because I could still support them. Tired because no one noticed the cost. I stopped buying little things for myself. I delayed fixing things around the house. I told myself I did not need much. And maybe I didn't. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered why my sacrifices were invisible. Why love was assumed, but never returned in small ways. A quiet dinner. One evening, my son came by unannounced. He sat at the table while I served him dinner. He ate quickly, distracted. Then he mentioned money. Not carefully, not gently, just casually, as if it was part of the meal. I nodded and said I would see what I could do. He smiled, thanked me quickly, then left. I sat alone afterward, staring at his empty plate. And for the first time, I felt used. That feeling scared me, so I pushed it away, choosing silence. I never told them how it made me feel. I did not want to seem weak. I did not want to create distance. I was afraid that if I spoke up, they would pull away completely. So I stayed quiet. I stayed helpful. And in doing so, I taught them something I never meant to teach. That my needs came last. A hard thought. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked older than I felt. More tired than I admitted. And a thought came to me, soft but heavy. What happens when I can no longer help? Would they still call? Would they still visit? That question stayed with me. I did not answer it yet, leading toward the breaking point. By the time Mother's Day came around, this pattern was already set. They loved me, in their way. I believed that. But love had become mixed with habit. And habit had turned into expectation. I was no longer just their mother. I was their support system, their solution, their safety net. And that night, when they walked in asking for money, something inside me finally began to wake up. Love should never feel like an obligation. And when it does, something has already gone wrong. I did not know it yet. But I was getting closer to the moment when I would finally see the truth. The days after Mother's Day passed slowly. I moved through my routine like always. I cooked. I cleaned. I rested when my body asked me to. But inside, something had changed. It was not sadness anymore. It was awareness. Once you begin to see clearly, you cannot unsee it. A small push toward truth. One morning, while sorting through old papers, I found a notebook. Inside were notes I had written over the years. Small reminders. Dates. Amounts. Money I had lent. Money I had given. I had never added it up before. I was afraid to. That morning, I did. The number surprised me. Not because it was large, but because I had never thought of it as loss. I had called it love. An accidental discovery. Later that day, I checked my phone. I do not usually spend much time on social media, but something made me look. I saw pictures my children had posted. Smiling faces. Nice restaurants. A weekend trip. They looked happy. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling something I did not want to feel. Confusion. Because the same week they had told me they were struggling. They were celebrating. That was when a quiet thought entered my mind. Maybe they are not as helpless as they say. The unheard conversation. A few days later, my daughter came by. She was in a hurry. She always was. She mentioned another problem. Another expense. And without thinking, she said something that stayed with me. You always help. I know you will. She did not mean to hurt me. But those words settled deep in my chest. Because they were not about trust. They were about certainty. Sitting with the truth. That night, I sat alone in the living room. No lights. No noise. Just me and my thoughts. I remembered every time I had said yes. Even when it hurt. Every time I had stayed quiet. To keep peace. And for the first time, I allowed myself to ask a hard question. If I stopped helping, what would remain? The answer scared me. A gentle realization. I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror. I did not see a victim. I did not see a failure. I saw a woman who had loved deeply and forgotten herself. That realization did not come with anger. It came with sadness. And strangely, relief. Because understanding the truth is the first step toward change. The decision begins. I did not confront them. Not yet. I needed time. I needed clarity. I started doing something new. I listened to myself. I noticed when my body felt tired. I noticed when my heart felt heavy. And I promised myself something small but important. I would stop saying yes automatically. Time passed. Not in a dramatic way. Not marked by big events. Just ordinary days. One after another. And somehow, those ordinary days healed me. A new rhythm. My life found a new rhythm. Mornings were slower. I no longer rushed through them. I sat by the window with my tea. I watched the light change on the walls. I listened to my body. I rested when I needed to. For the first time in many years, I felt present in my own life. Changes in our relationship. My children still called. Not as often. Not with urgency. The conversations felt different now. Shorter. More careful. Sometimes, they asked how I was. Sometimes, they did not. And I learned to be okay with both. I understood something important. I could not control how they showed love. But I could control how I showed love to myself. Letting go without cutting ties. I did not cut them out of my life. I did not disappear. I simply stopped overextending. When they asked for help, I paused before answering. Sometimes I helped. Sometimes I said no. And the world kept turning. Saying no did not make me a bad mother. It made me an honest one. Forgiveness, quiet and real. Forgiveness did not come quickly, but it came gently. I forgave them for not understanding. I forgave myself for staying silent too long. We all do the best we can, with what we know at the time. That thought softened my heart. Seeing myself clearly. One afternoon, I caught my reflection again. This time, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I felt whole. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. The lesson I carry, if I have learned anything, it is this. Love should not erase you. Being a mother does not mean giving until there is nothing left. Care should flow both ways, even if it is not equal. And if it does not, it is okay to step back quietly and protect your heart. A warm goodbye. This story does not end with distance or anger. It ends with understanding, with peace, with the quiet strength that comes from knowing your worth. If you are listening to this and you feel forgotten, remember this. It is never too late to be gentle with yourself. I still love my children. That will never change. But now, I love myself too. And that has made all the difference. That week, I did not send money. No one called to check on me. No one asked if I was okay. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. Choosing myself did not happen all at once. It was not a loud decision. It did not come with speeches or tears. It began quietly, in small moments, when I finally listened to my own heart, learning to pause. The next time my phone rang, I did not answer right away. I let it ring. I watched it light up, and then go silent. For the first time in many years, I did not feel guilty. I felt calm. When I returned the call later, I listened more than I spoke. They talked about their problems, their worries, their plans. They did not ask about my day. And I noticed something important. Nothing bad happened, because I did not rush to help. The world did not fall apart. Changing small habits. I began to treat my life with more care. I bought myself small things again. A warm sweater. Better food. I fixed a broken cabinet in the kitchen. I replaced old light bulbs. These were simple things, but they made me feel seen. Seen by myself. And that mattered more than I expected. Quiet preparation. I went to the bank one afternoon. I opened a new account that only I controlled. I did not tell anyone. It was not about secrets. It was about safety. I wanted to know that I could stand on my own. Even now. Especially now. That feeling brought peace. Redefining love. I thought a lot about love during those days. About how easily love can turn into duty. When boundaries disappear. I realized something gently. Love should not leave you empty. It should not make you feel invisible. True love notices when you are tired. It asks how you are. And if it does not, it needs space to grow again. The change they felt. They noticed the change. The calls became shorter. The tone became careful. "Are you okay, Mom?" one of them asked once. I smiled softly. "Yes," I said. "I'm okay." And for the first time, it was true. Strength without hardness. I did not become cold. I did not stop loving them. I simply stopped disappearing. I stopped bending myself to fit every need. I learned that strength does not need anger. It does not need punishment. Sometimes, strength is just standing still and saying nothing. A new kind of peace. My evenings felt different. Quieter. Slower. I read. I rested. I no longer waited for the phone to ring. And slowly, the loneliness I once feared began to soften. Because I was no longer lonely with myself. Choosing myself did not mean leaving them behind. It meant finally coming home to who I was. And that choice, made with calm and care, prepared me for the final step I did not yet know I was ready to take.